Great. So now everyone's there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Magnimind meetup event. It's great. It's a Saturday morning. You're enthusiastic about learning more in data analytics. This is actually our first data analytics program. We start to now offer data analytics. We have been focused a lot on data science in general, and now it's our first in that kind of program, and I hope it just delivers what you're looking for. So I will start to introduce myself. I'm a Stanford scientist and Magnimind co-founder, serial entrepreneur, and then have been in data field for the last 20 years in my academic and my industrial career. And then we, as a Magnimind meetup community, we have 7 meetup groups. If you're not part of any of those groups, you can join those meetup groups that primarily we announce our events in those groups. And we have social media platforms, and we highly recommend YouTube channel. We put most our events recordings in YouTube channel. It's a very rich in content. We have events and we have talks on different domains of data science. You may find that content in our YouTube channel. If you subscribe it, you'll get a direct notification from it. We are starting a mentorship programs. We now have several like tiers of the program. We used to have only one. We were only accommodating students from mid intermediate to advanced level. However, now we have programs for for beginners, for intermediate, for advanced level. And now we have also full data analytics bootcamp and a mentorship program. For these programs, we are announcing, we are actually providing 4 to 5 mentors throughout the program. It goes from 15 weeks to 24 weeks. And then you get to work with different mentors in different stage. So we prepare you for the industry, for interviews. So our focus has changed actually for this upcoming batches. Are more focused. We want to get your FANG level training so you can target FANG companies. So get a better salary, better position. So our focus on also our career management part gear more into get our students to FANG companies. So today we have this workshop, and to prepare you for interviews in data analytics, we have a fantastic Magnimind faculty crew, and I will introduce them. Dr. Jeran, he's co-founder of Magnimind Academy, faculty in San Jose State University, former faculty in Santa Clara University and Heist University, and we've been doing a lot of medical AI projects together with Stanford School of Medicine and some other hospitals and schools, medical schools globally. And then Semi Hasaj, he's one of our best faculty and crew in Magnimind, and he did his master's in data science, data analytics in MIT. And he's been working in C3 AI, the AI-focused company developing machine learning AI models, data analytics models, and as well as he's been experienced a lot of great experience with LLMs. And so I will let Sami and Dr. Jaran give a brief infos of himself, and then they can start actually the session.
I think you gave a great intro. If that's the case, yeah, I mean, I think Dr. Bade gave a great intro. I mean, that's a bit of our backgrounds. Maybe what we can do is just jump right into the lectures. for the attendees.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll actually
Actually,
be
let's
asking
give
some.
yeah, let's give 1 minute like for the polls. So we do surveys to understand your background so we can give you better, provide you better programs, prepare you better programs. I'm gonna actually launch program those surveys throughout the program. Let's give in a minute. You can start after people having yeah, filling that up. And if you have any questions, please ask from Q&A sessions here. We don't allow videos because so many people, they're big, so chaos. Please ask your questions Q&A. Oh, poll ended? Okay, let me start it again, relaunch the poll. Okay, good. Great. Sammy, you can actually start it while people just finishing up the poll. I will just throughout your programs, I will start the polls. So you can continue
Sure.
your program.
Let's do it. And yeah, for all attendees, of course, thanks for joining. Feel free to, if you haven't already, do fill in the polls. It just gives us an idea, really, of where are you coming from, and we can help meet you where you're at, right? Cover different complex topics, different areas, and we can go from there. Presentation and look at the chat. Okay, great. So far, so good. I can hide this up here. Cool. So, right, like Dr. Bade was saying, we're going to cover at least the core elements of the analytics interviews, right? We want you to really just come out of this and at least understand what to expect in data analytics, business analytics, these flavor of interviews, and also just know how to plan and prepare for them going forward. So we can share some resources as well. And also just to feel confident, right? To be able to land and ace these interviews, do well in them, know how to prepare for them, and have a plan going forward. So just to preface this, I mean, it is a 60-minute workshop. We will try to cover this, but for sure, the full expertise will take more and more practice afterwards. My goal is to give you a plan and give you an idea to really fine tune and have a precise course of action after this. And to give you a flavor of what we might be covering and what might be in, let's say, in analytics job interview at a FANG company. I think a big part of it is SQL, right? The ability to explain SQL concepts, and especially write in SQL. And then even on top of that, being able to know for a given business question, how to use SQL to get the answer to that question, right? And we'll cover these concepts. This might be one for an interviewer's problem, and you're expected to write SQL code that solves the question they're asking you. Let's say, given this information, right, report the name and bonus amount of each employee with a bonus less than 1,000. We're going to actually go through questions at the end of this presentation. For now, I'm just giving a bit of a preface of what to expect. you also might be, and actually will be asked, just problem solving case study level questions where you're given maybe a theoretical one, either you work at the company or you work at a theoretical company. It could involve, for example, A/B testing, right? They have a recommendation system at the company. They have a new one that they've developed. One case study type of question might be, how would you go about designing an A/B test to evaluate this new recommendation system? Let me just peek. Okay, perfect. All right, and then we'll walk through the steps to do this. And again, just to reiterate, it won't be enough in 60 minutes to master the interview, but it can help show the path. And then you can walk the path from there. I'll quickly cover maybe 5 or 10 minutes of just resume tips and job hunting and application tips. And I want to spend the majority of the remaining. So please be ready to write in the chat. We're gonna walk through questions, try and actually approach the solutions, and we can cover them together. I always find actually attempting them, trying to and getting feedback is the best way to grow and learn and get better. Okay. Just to cover resume tips, because there's a bit of a fun applications, right? At the top level,
So, Sammy, your connection has problem. Yep. So your voice, I mean, you pause now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just rejoined. Sorry about that. I don't know why the connection got bad all of a sudden. Hopefully it won't happen again. What was the last thing that was covered? Was it on resume?
Yeah, you were talking about resumes.
Okay, awesome. I'll talk to my cable and internet provider. Yeah, I'm seeing I'm getting some instability, unfortunately. We'll try and mitigate against it. Okay. Yes, for resume. So again, just to cover again, there's a funnel, right? First, you need to get the interview before you can start doing well on the interviews. And your resume plays a big part in that. And there's a lot of feedback on what is a good resume template, what should it look like. I think the thing that I find works is also someone who
Yeah,
reviews in my current position as a data scientist. I do have my experience.
yeah. Sammy, you are
Might
being
need to turn video off.
yeah, your
Okay.
voice is being interrupted. So maybe you can turn off the video. So Breka is suggesting maybe you might turn the video off.
We'll try to rejoin. This will be better. Sometimes it happens to me as well, and like even though I'm at Stanford network, it just this connection problems happens. So
I will actually, I think minutes again. I do apologize for inconvenience, but hopefully that should fix it.
Sammy, you are muted if you are talking.
is actually changing the room. So, I mean, one of the criteria for like having a good, clean resume is important. We always recommend, actually, in our programs, we have a resume coaching, and then we recommend to get a coach. Although you may hear from here and there about preparing good resume, but someone really good expert in it should go through it. It's worth it. Like you might even get a top resume coaching because it's gonna get you great job, and it is worth it to get it. And resume actually is as important as like you're growing yourself. If you not reflect if you not reflect your skills in your resume, it's the problem. What actually recruiters are doing, first they look at the keywords. They have like hundreds of resume, and then first couple lines and skill sets that the first one they go and look at. So it's important to pass through that and then have the keywords is matching with your the jobs you're applying is the key. And then also preparing yourself for the most demanded keywords is also important. So, for example, like nowadays, NLP, LLMs, all this AI prompting and stuff should be kind of in your skill set if you're really looking for jobs in this field. And Dr. Jiran, you are welcome to add those highlights too.
Yeah, one thing is you might need to maybe prepare or adjust or change or modify your resume based on the job description you're applying for. So using a single resume across different jobs is not a very good tactic. So you need to modify your resume based on which job you're applying to. I understand this is a very time consuming and requiring a lot of effort. But that's what it is. So your resume is going to be eliminated automatically if it is not fitting to the job description.
So,
And most of the time, a
user-
human being is not looking at your resume,
yeah,
so that's important.
my usual recommendations having like a 4 or 5 categories of resume for different like a sub job fields, and then doing a lot of like a mass applications, and like there's places like ZipRecruiters, Indeed, LinkedIn have a quick easy apply. But if you find something really overlapping with your background, just really spend good time. If it takes hours to prepare for it. So Sammy, we just give some hints on the resume prep since you're talking about it too. You can continue.
Yeah. Yeah, I was able to listen in. I think you guys gave very strong points there. Funny, as soon as I wanted to switch, the internet was very stable. Hopefully it stays this way. But yeah, the points given are very strong. I think one mistake, at least I made before, was just having one resume that I would give to different flavors of jobs. Like, oh, here's my one resume, and I'll give it to every single position, whether it's analytics or data science or whatever, and just assuming the person reviewing it would be able to make a connection that, yes, this is relevant. The reality is, imagine that there's a very strong keyword filter bias in the reviews. You really just want the resume to scream like it is a direct fit for exactly what the role is asking for. If it's in analytics, it needs to scream, I'm in analytics. And also maybe not just that, but if you have relevant experience to, let's say, the business or the industry that they're in, marketing or manufacturing, that's a great one too. So make it fit and make it match the job as well as possible. I think the tip of having 4 or 5 versions probably covers you pretty well. But again, you want to make sure and you put the effort into having 4 or 5 clear one-page versions for these different jobs you're looking for. Right? Thousands or hundreds of resumes for near perfect matches. And I always find avoid the format where you're basically just describing some tasks. highlight your impacts, especially in analytics. It's a role where you're expected to have business impact. You work directly with business stakeholders, with product stakeholders. So you actually have the opportunity to highlight and basically brag. You should think of it as bragging. Like, look at all these things I did. Humble brag, but still. And general bullet point ingredient I like is I did X using Y to achieve Z, or some formula there. You don't need to apply this religiously to every point, but the point is to highlight your achievement, highlight how you did it, and then just general what you did. So hopefully that helps. And we can skip on resume now. For job hunt, again, it can take a long time, 3+ months. There's a lot of rejection that comes with it. That's fine. That's just the name of the game. A 1 to 5% response rate from applications is very normal. Referrals are very helpful. You really just want to skip that automated filter as much as you can. If you want to ask people for a referral, that's totally fine. Other people have different opinions. I just like when people are direct, like, hey, I want a referral. No need to say, hey, I'm just curious to talk about your position, and then right at the end say you want the referral. It's fine. Just be clear. People are happy with transparency. And there are many tools out there to speed up job applications. There's no affiliation at all. I just like them. Simplified.jobs, for example, I found them years ago. They've gotten quite big now. They're great for just being able to apply quickly. Cool. Okay, we're at about 27-minute mark. Yeah, we spent a bit more fixing my technical problems, but we'll make sure we cover some great mock interview questions. First one being star questions, right? These come up a lot, and they do matter. You do definitely want to prepare for these type of interviews and these type of interview questions. These are the typical, tell me about a time where you did XYZ. Tell me about an experience of ABCD. And really what interviewers are looking for is a thoughtful and specific answer. Or they might give hypotheticals. What would you do in this hypothetical scenario? And the best approach is to tie it back to your existing experiences. So if you're not very familiar with STAR, some might be, some might not be, that's totally fine. It's just a framework for asking these type of questions. Each one of these being an acronym. First, just describing the situation, right? Again, I think especially in more technical domains, we like to jump into the technical details of whatever we did, but make sure you give context. You have all the context in your mind, but the other person has no idea about any of this. So you want to give them an idea of the problem statement, of the environment where your work was happening in. One example might be, in my previous role as a business analyst at XYZ, I was tasked with analyzing company sales process to identify areas of improvement, right? They were struggling, give more context. They were struggling to meet quarterly targets, and the company was losing market share to competitors. Okay, now I understand the context of your work. Once you explain the situation, then you can explain what specific task you were expected to do, right? That's where the T comes in. You might say, and in this hypothetical example, my responsibility was to gather data on the current sales process, identify pain points, and develop recommendations for improving the sales process. And again, this will be very tailored to your actual work. We're just demonstrating one flavor of this framework. Next two letters are action and result. So you've described the situation, you've described the task. Now you tell the interviewer what you actually did to solve the problem. Might be starting reviews with subject matter experts on the sales team. I identified 2 key areas of improvement. inadequate product knowledge, lack of standardized sales metrics, and I developed a report to outline these findings. Okay, great. Feel free to go into more details, but now you've described the action. And last but not least, and you can actually maybe, sometimes I like to say the result first after I've given context, just to let the interviewer know what's important, and then repeat the result again at the end, because the result is the most important thing. What happened as a result of what you did? Anything quantifiable, any outcomes that came out of it. That's really like what you're trying to share. And you're trying to, you do want to impress, right? If you've done great work, other people might not know. The results really show that it was great work. And you might say, okay, as a result of my analysis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the sales team saw a 10% increase in revenue within 6 months. Boom. And that would be an example of like a very high quality answer. What I also find, just to kind of spend a bit more time on this, is you might be asked about prior experiences or things that are star-like behavioral questions. I always find it's good to go high level first and then ask the interviewer if they should go into more detail. Oftentimes you'll find they don't want to go into the detail you might have thought they wanted to. And if you do, it could just be not a great use of time. So do keep that in mind. One thing I would recommend very specifically before I go into the more technical concepts is when you're preparing for interviews, make a grid, right? Make a grid with, let's say, columns being different experiences you've had, maybe job 1, job 2, project A, project B. And then for each of those, come up with a star-like example of sometime you had a good impact, sometime you overcame a challenge, and other of these like generic flavors of behavioral questions. If you do that and you just have them already written in the last month or so, it'll be much easier to recall these experiences when you're asked any question. You'll be prepared for any question about your previous experiences. Yeah, the grid is a great useful tool. Like, make sure you know what you did before. I find these days, again, I'm so involved in my work, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, when someone asks me what do I do at work, I'm like, I freeze. Like, what do I do? Right? You're so deep in the weeds. So having the ability to like step back and have these prepared is just very, very helpful. Okay.
Sami, sometimes, let's say this applicant has no experience, did not work in any other company before, maybe never worked in a project, never had any project where he or she could measure the impact.
Mhm.
So, what do you think? How would you answer this question if they asked you, like you are totally new into this area and then never had any experience to share?
Yeah.
So before coming to the interview, should we try to get involved with some project, even though we don't have any experience in any company, so
Yeah.
that we can at least talk about that project?
Yeah, that's a great point. Right. You may not have, especially if you're looking to break into the field, work experience, but if you have project experiences and you really went deep into a project and went into the details of it, that's a great thing to bring up. And I think everything here applies. There was still a situation, there's a project, I found it interesting for whatever reasons you can describe. You had a task, you had actions to fulfill the project, solve it, whatever it might be. And the result might be, okay, a technical result, like, hey, I was able to achieve very strong results. Maybe I had this nice analysis, or it might be results on that reflected on you. Like, because of this, I actually learned a lot. And, I learned about ABCD, I grew my skills in XYZ, and then maybe it caused me to try another project, which was even more technically or conceptually challenging because I was prepared by this one project. So, it's always about how you tell the story. Really, you want to be able to tell a good story, and it doesn't need to be work related, project related. Yeah, you can still tell a very compelling and interesting story. about your experiences. Hopefully that helps. And I totally get it. We've all been there, like
Yeah.
trying to just get the first job. Yeah. Cool. Okay, looking good on time. For this one, I would love for people to actually try to write their solutions in the chat. Okay, this is a more beginner level SQL problem, and we can add on layers of complexity. But let's say this is the question, right? We're sitting down. I am your interviewer. You are the interviewee. And I say, you have the following table for world. It has columns name, continent, area, population, and GDP. Hopefully these columns are relatively self-explanatory. And I'm going to ask you and tell you that a country is big if A, it has an area of at least 3 million kilometers squared, or it has a population of at least 25 million people. And you have to write an SQL query to report the name, population, and area of these big countries. Return the result in any order. So who would like to try some SQL on the fly for this type of question? I'll keep the chat open on my side. And we will be able to cover this solution later. But what would we need here? And bonus points of like the SQL concepts that you might want to use. And if you reply, feel free. I know there's different options. You can reply to hosts and panelists. You can reply to everyone. Just to keep things going smooth, I would appreciate writing out your thought process in the chat. You don't even need to write the solution. Thought process is fine. And we can get some feedback from there. And a bonus concept here might be, the distinction of how do you filter in SQL? Maybe where's a good place to put this? Right, really this is covering just filtering in general. And given we can maybe just cover some of these concepts. Maybe it's too easy, maybe it's too hard, I don't know. Okay, I do see one option given to us, right? We want to select, let's go top down. And I see from Palamo, great option. Oh, more coming in. Anastasia, Chandray, Bobby. Okay. And I think we're seeing a common theme, right? What is the question asking? A, report the name, population, and area. So of course we want to select name, population, and area. And then the other relatively simple concept is filtering, right? You can select data such that it meets a given condition. So obviously we need to select from the table we care about. And then I think a lot of people have given good, compelling solutions here. Simple where clause, area is at least greater than this, and population is at least greater than this. There might be some gotchas here, by the way, where what if the value is none? Right? Does that change things? You always want to keep in mind how NaN values and missing values might impact your filtering conditions. I think in this case, it should be fine. But for example, if it were less than, is a missing population counting as 0? It's something to keep in mind.
Sami, just one or two things. I heard this many times from people who are taking interviews. So they say during the interview, when they receive the question, let's say this SQL question, simple SQL question, they were frozen.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important that no matter how simple the question might look like when you are studying, it's very important that you not only just look at and then think that you understand the question. It's very important that you actually write it down, the answer. You write it down, develop that muscle, so that in the real interview environment, you're automatically going to begin typing the code. That's one thing that's I think it's important. Second thing is, as you are writing your codes, please make sure that, as Sami was saying, make sure that you talk and then let the other person know how you are thinking, how you are approaching. Maybe early on, so you may be receiving some hint, which is going to help you to find the right solution a lot quicker. That's the second. And third thing is, that's another observation I'm making. Memorizing so many different questions, that's one way to go, but it's impossible to memorize every other question. So like this one, simple. So how you filter data, select from where, just know the structure, and so that you can apply it to a different question. You don't need to memorize the question actually.
Yeah. Everything Dr. Joanna is saying is spot on. These things come, at least in interview performance, in practice, right? Live coding is very hard. Everyone loses like 2 standard deviations of IQ when somebody's watching you and there's pressure. It's difficult. So just practicing these types of questions on your own is helpful, but then also with others, like in mock interviews, which is maybe something we're just trying to roughly simulate in this workshop. But you can actually get, friends or even instruction programs to walk through mock interviews, simulate, the nerves. You're a bit more nervous. You can freeze on the question, but if you practice it enough times, you'll actually get quite comfortable. And yes, as you approach these solutions, before even jumping in, and it's something we maybe can't clarify right now, but make sure you clarify the problem and your understanding with the interviewer. There have been many times where actually the question is quite simple, but intentionally vague almost, because they want you to ask a certain line of reasoning, a certain set of questions to clarify the ambiguity. The reason is, real world is very ambiguous. So being able to ask a good set of questions to narrow down and define the problem is very important. And yeah, lastly, talking while you code, super important. Please do not code in silence. Interviewers really want to see your train of thought. That's arguably half the interview, is hearing your train of thought. Cool. We can cover one more SQL question, and then I want to jump into problem solving. So this one is a little bit maybe more beginner intermediate, involving 2 tables. So let's say, and we can try the same approach, right? Let's say I'm the interviewer, and everything we've told you now about clarifying questions and all of that, we can have that all happen in the chat. But I'm going to tell you, you have these 2 tables, employee, which has the information that you see, and bonus, which has the information that you see. Your task is to write a SQL query to report the name and bonus amount of each employee with a bonus less than 1,000. And return the table result in any order. Okay, and we can give a few minutes. Again, maybe ingredients of approaching this. Any things you need to clarify or better define that you can ask the interviewer, ask myself. It's also good practice, if you like, to take notes on your end. For me, it always takes a bit of time to get familiar with the tables, right? Like what do each of these tables mean?
Yeah, I think this time, right? So one table is giving us name, the other one is giving us bonus. So we need to find a way to connect them. I can see some people are writing in the chat already.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so I'm seeing, first merge and then sort, and then filtering again. And I see, someone in Python and R, right? So another common thing is sometimes they'll let you do pandas in Python instead of SQL. That's also an option. I think the concepts apply, very, very similarly. Merge, group by, filtering, all these conditional data aggregations. Right, so just to cover it a bit briefly, the core concept here is the ability to, at least in SQL, it's called the join. In other languages, you might call it a merge. The bonus field actually references the employee field, right? This employee ID is also mentioned here. So you can join the tables on this. In here, it's a primary key. In the bonus table, it's known as a foreign key, such that now you can know the bonus information for each employee. So here we do the left join. We select the name and bonus, and then we do our where clause, right? In this situation, you might ask, and this is a good clarifying question, is null valid, right? Why don't they have a bonus? Well, maybe it's never been entered yet because they never received one. So in that case, that might count as less than $1,000. And it's a clarifying question you ideally should ask the interviewer, else you might forget this null clause and just say the where clause of less than 1,000.
So Sam, in this question, maybe one clarifying question might be, so you left join employee and bonus, and then we are also listing any employee name where bonus is null. So you might have some employees from the employee table, right? So we can list their names, but we don't have any bonus information on them in the bonus table. So that's why maybe that was a clarification question I would ask.
Yeah.
So left join and bonus is null. What is the connection between these two?
Yeah, and that's a good clarifying question. And it depends on the interviewer. I might say, if it's null, fill it with 0, right? If it's missing, just assume it's a 0 bonus, or there might be a different filtering condition. But yeah, that's exactly the type of question you'd want to ask. Cool. Okay, how are we doing with time? Okay, perfect. I'm going to skip over the last SQL, but it just gets a little bit more involved. Now this one has more intermediate level where you're actually doing, for example, ranking over and doing subfiltering and these like window functions, right? This is where you get to more intermediate level. You might have more complicated or more involved joins, but we won't cover it right now because I really want to make sure we cover problem solving. Problem solving in analytics can cover many different concepts. One is, let's say, A/B testing. So if it is involving A/B testing, you might be asked the situation to design one, right? They really want to check, could you design your own product experiment, your own A/B testing? Not only technically, but do you have sufficient business and product sense to understand the problem and to make a positive impact with your experiment? Right? So they're gonna, as the interviewer, ensure you understand the product and business. Whatever interview you're performing, review that business beforehand, right? If it's Google or Facebook and you actually know the team that you're interviewing for, make sure you understand them, because odds are they're going to ask you a question related to the product they work on. If it's the recommendation algorithm, they will probably ask you that. If it's Uber or Lyft, they will probably ask you ride sharing and this multi-sided marketplace type of problem. So that'll give you just extra preparation to know how to answer those types of questions. Very important. Then, okay, you might want to practice various A/B testing and metric-based questions and start developing an intuition of how to answer these case study type of questions, and then also developing like a framework for yourself, right? Because again, you might be asked a very open-ended question. It's common to feel overwhelmed. It's happened to me. And you might go down a rabbit hole instead of avoiding that altogether, having spent a bit more time defining it and then really understanding what approach to take. There's a lot of helpful resources I like to recommend. Like there's a book called Ace the Data Science Interview. I think a lot of it applies to analytics. There's many YouTubers like Emma Ding and Daniel Lee that actually walk through these kind of mock questions, and practicing with others, many resources available. And just in general, you want to be able to have an understanding of the technicals, but also the non-technicals to solve these problems. Right, this might be one example. Okay, let's actually go into a tangible one, right? Where let's say we're interviewing and the question is, you work at a social media company which has developed a new recommendation system to improve the videos shown to users in their feeds. Let's say this is Instagram Reels, right? You've joined the Instagram Reels team. They're growing a lot. They're competing with TikTok. This is a very relevant problem. How might you design an A/B test to evaluate if the new recommendation system that they've developed is indeed better? And again, I encourage participation in the chat. What questions would you ask the interviewer? How would you think about approaching this? One question I have that comes to mind is, and this is common in all analytics problems, what is the definition of better? Right? That involves an understanding of the product and really a conversation with the interviewer. What metric are they trying to optimize? What defines a good recommendation system and a bad one? And there's two parts here. From your own product sense, and this is like a common word you would hear, you need to have a sufficient understanding of what are recommendation systems trying to do. What are they trying to maximize? You might think of things like watch time, right? A recommendation system is strong if the videos it recommends are actually watched for a longer period of time. You might also want to see things like how often are they liked? How often are they disliked? Or does the user close the application after a certain amount of recommendations because they did not meet, they didn't like them? And this one evolves, by the way, very rapidly. So in Instagram, if I recall correctly, they used to optimize more for likes and watch time. But lately, very recently, they're starting to optimize more for shares. So they're trying to find recommendations, or they're trying to recommend videos that cause people to share the videos to their friends. Why? Well, the data scientists and product managers and engineers could give more detail, but I'm sure they're trying to tie it to the business bottom line, and they're finding that videos that get shared more impact the business positively overall. Just to kind of walk through this, one thing you might want to do is, again, define the hypothesis, right? This is straightforward. In this case, it's an A/B test. Clearly define that the hypothesis is that the new recommendation system is better than the current one in terms of, or is not better than the current one in terms of engagement metrics. The key part here is really defining the metrics to optimize for, right? Identify the key metrics that will be used to measure the success of the new recommendation system and that your A/B test is trying to measure.
Yeah, Semi, when we are talking about problem solving, like A/B test, I think the majority of the conversation is going to be more around developing these key metrics.
Yes.
That is going to tell the other side how much you understand the context, a deeper understanding of the problem, actually. So that's very important, coming up with the right metrics.
100%. Yeah, they're trying, again, in these roles, you're a partner to the business, so you want to understand the business and the product. They might even ask, for example, why isn't like rate? Why don't we just use like rate, right? Well, if the videos are always liked by users, that should be a great metric. And in that question, they'll try to understand that you understand, okay, light rate has some considerations. People might try to abuse that, make videos that force the user to like it, but all these sorts of considerations. So you want to show that expertise really, that you understand the product very well and the considerations. But yes, many key metrics here related to this type of problem, click-through rate, time spent, views, all of that are relevant. You want to show that, hey, you understand these, and then eventually make your recommendation of why you think metrics A, B, C, D should be captured, and then go from there. Later on, you might be expected to actually define the scaffolding of the A/B testing. So now that you've demonstrated your business and product sense, okay, demonstrate your statistics and A/B testing sense, right? How might you divide the two different groups? Sometimes you can just do a naive random split, but a lot of the times you cannot simply do a naive split because there will be interference between the groups. So they'll be testing that you understand that. One common one might be, let's say, for ride sharing, if one group of people in a city has an experiment and others don't, they might, let's say that experiment somehow reduces their prices, it'll affect how they compete in that environment. So long story short, you want to demonstrate that you understand this. And then lastly, the mechanics, right? Like, what is the significance level you're looking at? What sample size would you want to run this experiment for? So on and so on.
Same. So when determining the test and control groups, you might receive very interesting questions actually. So let's say if I ask, let's say you randomly sample for your control group, you randomly sample from Texas. And for your test group, you randomly sample from California, from your user base. So would that be all right? So I might ask a question like that when you are designing the A/B test. So randomly creating the test and control groups, we have to be careful. So you might receive a lot of different questions on how you can randomize this selection process. So I mean, it's not just about randomly sampling from a group, but it's about sampling with stratification so that you can create a good representation of your population, your samples.
100%. Yeah. The selection of your groups, the strategy there is, I think in my opinion, the majority of the battle. If you do a good job there, then running the experiment is relatively more straightforward. Okay. So that would be an example of A/B testing. There are more here, but in the interest of time, I do want to skip to one in particular. Just know you might be asked metrics questions like, the average ETA for a ride sharing has increased. How would you investigate? We'll just quickly skip through these. And I want to skip to another type of case study, which is more involved, might involve some SQL, might involve some business sense. I know we only have a couple minutes, so I'll just try to quickly cover it. Let's try this one. Okay, we're at the final interview, and I'm the interviewer. I'll ask, you are a business analyst at our company called StreamNow. We're a video streaming service. And our content team needs to decide which TV shows to renew for another season. We have a lot of TV shows. We can't renew all of them. It's too expensive. You have the following data tables that are shown on the right? You have tables on shows themselves, on episodes of each show, the views and view metadata for a given episode, and finally, user information. And you might be asked a variety of different case study business questions. We don't have to walk through all of them now. But for example, would you be able to get the shows that have the highest completion rate? Or maybe you might be asked, how does viewership change across seasons for a particular show? Let's say they give you the ID. What genres are popular? Here, it would be testing your ability to navigate the data, filter it to find an answer here. You also might be asked targeted specific questions, right? where for a given TV show, what is the overall completion rate for this show? And they'll give you the definition. It's at least defined as watching at least 80% of an episode's duration. Again, can you walk through the technical implementation of this and really defining what the interviewer is asking for? But just to flash it, because again, I know we're a little bit close on time, there are many non-technical questions that can appear in this type of case study. And again, they're trying to grasp and understand your business understanding of the problem. And really the metrics again. How do you tie numbers into business? For example, completion rate is a good metric to gauge a show on, but what other engagement metrics would help evaluate the show's performance? And then as the interviewer, you're expected to have a good understanding of how, again, what numbers, what data, what metrics might be useful to determine a good show, a high-performing show, from a less performing show. There might be what external factors might explain high completion, but declining overall engagement. So one great example here is, let's say some shows, they might have a very loyal fan base of a small group of people who watch them consistently. But overall, people who are not part of this very loyal fan base churn out after an episode or two. So yes, maybe the show has very strong completion rate, but overall does not do well with engagement. And any new people who are not this loyal group don't like it or don't seem to complete it. So that would be an example of high completion, but poor performing show if this loyal fan base is small. Maybe it's 100 people, but the show costs tens of millions of dollars to produce. So you have to be able to make that analysis and make that judgment of, is the show really providing the return that we expect? Right. And then lastly, you might, after munging through the data, be asked to provide some business recommendations, maybe to renew shows that have met your criteria of completion rate, tailor content, evaluate further shows with dropping viewership, or maybe give suggestions for popular genres. The possibilities here are endless, but the interview can go in any of these branches. Cool. So that's all. I know it was a bit of a fire hose. That's all I wanted to share, and we wanted to share for this session. Hopefully it was helpful, and it gives a high recall idea of what you might expect in the interview. And then, we can go back to this slide of, we've shown you the path. Now, hopefully it's clear what that path looks like, and you can continue to excel, get ready, prepare, and ace these interviews when you encounter them.
So thank you, Dr. Jiran and Sami has been showing that. It's pretty useful. So what I actually had a review, I look at the surveys. A lot of people actually hasn't had an experience, like really a good significant number of people here didn't have any experience in the market. They're going to get in. For that, experience really matters a lot. And then, so also a lot of people here, when we ask about what you're looking for, you think you need, they didn't, few people told that they really need to learn behavioral and communication skills. I should tell you that this is really one of the key skills to have in interviews. We know a lot of people, because of their great in technical skills, but they're not good at the communication skills, they fail a lot. We highly recommend to strengthen that aspect as well. And then it's a lot about storytelling. It's also going communication, like what Sami go through this case studies. It's just not only technical, you'll be able to tell your story. So what we do in Magnimind, we have a lot of like a mock-up interviews. When we do those interview with students, we know that students know how to answer it. We know they know the answer, but they don't know how to answer it. It just really takes a good training and practice to answer those. And it goes again, like it's not about you don't know it or your communication is not good, it's just to practice it. So we'll continue to do those more, but just give you again, mention that we're starting data analytics and business analytics boot camps. And we have different range of programs, tier of programs. I'm showing you those like for beginners, intermediate, advanced people. I see a lot of people are beginner here. We start from the scratch and then 24 weeks. We have a company affiliation package, which actual company you're going with actual company, you're gonna be affiliated and doing a project together in the later stages after learn. And other new things we introduced, we have like a lot of mock interviews. We have like 10 mock interviews in our programs now to give you as much as chance to practice yourself for our programs. But actually, all our programs in one-on-one coaching and mentoring, that's the key we call individualized, personalized education. It really make a big difference compared to class-based structures and programs. So if you have any questions, let us know. We're gonna continue to have this programs, the follow-up actually workshops, how Dr. Jeran and Sami did it, both in data analytics and data science. Hope to see you in our events.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Sami.
Thanks, everyone. Hope it was helpful.